Part 3, Futures Past. Here, you forgot something. Direction implies exclusion, and exclusion means that many very psychic elements that could play their part in your life are denied the right to exist because they are incompatible with the general attitude. The normal man can follow the general trend without injury to himself, but the man who takes to the back streets and alleys because he cannot endure the broad highway will be the first to discover the psychic elements that are waiting to play their part in the life of the collective. Carl Jung, the Portable Jung. I write this laying on my back in a wobbly tent somewhere in the Nevada mountains. My partner and I are taking our eldest son, who was in the Cub Scouts, and his little brother camping. It is all our first time, sans me going on a quick trip decades ago with my high school best friend and his highly experienced dad. All I can remember is seeing the tent already made, making corny jokes with my friend all night, and waking up to go to Cedar Point. Now my middle age, is 40-something middle age? You tell me. My 40-something middle-aged back is sore from laying on the knotted forest floor, aggressively pressing against the tent bottom. My glamping-oriented partner got a queen-size inflatable bed, but we naively thought our two sleeping acrobats who, 7 and 4, and no more than 50 pounds each, can hardly stay contained with us in our king-size bed at home, would miraculously fit nicely within sleeping bags. Daddy's laying on the floor. They are all asleep. I am wide awake. A ridiculously howling mountain wind, at least to my New Jersey ears, has been slapping the hell out of our tent. I was first worried about the tent, us flying around off like Toto. And after an hour or so, I realized we weren't going to fly anyway, especially with the den leaders helping me mallop the hell out of the spikes. And then I worried about my family, and we, barely slept the night before because our eldest was restless and scared. And I wanted to make sure that the noise and flapping and such didn't wake them up. But then I realized an hour or so later that I'm the closest to the ground, and the wall and the violent sounds were biggest to me and me alone. So instead, I just lay there. I thought about a castle I thought I made up. Then I remembered my partner being there and that they were having a party when we passed by. And then I realized it was a memory. But from what country? And then it was this random castle we walked past in Spain many years ago. I smiled. I thought about loved ones I missed. One in particular spoke to me through the wind, and I suddenly remembered, after his passing, sitting with my sons at our old home, playing in our front yard and feeling his presence. And I realized how silly it was of me to not connect the heavy storm wind slapping to that very moment long ago. He would have loved this trip. I began to cry. And I thought about what it took me to get to this moment, to think about these moments. The rocky trail up the mountain, the popcorn sales and pine wood derbies, even the 7 years of stay-at-home daddying and potty training. All this conspiring for me to be still enough to excavate these memories long forgotten, to bring them to light, to mourn them. And then I started writing. Some of the passages you're reading started pouring out, downloading, as one of my mentors says. I jammed them into my iPhone under dim light and heavy wind. It is now 6:30 a.m. I've been up since midnight. But these memories and insights came after worrying about the environment, the storm, and the personal, the family. I spent 2 hours scared about factors outside of my control. I have neither shame nor guilt about it, and I respect it may have been a necessary part of feelings for me to process. I also know it didn't get me any closer to peace. The deep layers hid behind me accepting my boundaries while simultaneously understanding it wasn't forever. It was just now. It is crucial that we pull up what we've forgotten and let go of what is out of our control. The routines, the habits, and the strengths we carry are not of the future. You learned hyper-focus because you knew what happened when you didn't pay attention, or perhaps from the fear of losing something if you didn't. You built agility because things in your environment made it seemingly impossible to succeed without adapting to new, often unfair parameters. You leveraged time because there were others who had the power to take shortcuts, borrow social capital, and create something based on someone else's perceived legacy. You found energy because any action has an equal and opposite reaction, making it paramount to go longer than others who wouldn't have to work so hard to see outward results. These muscles don't just come out of thin air. They come from your experiences. And without honoring all of your experiences, you always will have an incomplete view of your power, the power you have for yourself and the power you have to unshackle others. In fact, those powers are one and the same. I tell my students, when you get these jobs that you've been so brilliantly trained for, just remember that your real job is to say that if you are free, you need to free someone else, said the late Toni Morrison. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. And it starts with you letting go of the tools you do not need anymore. Surviving a toxic relationship when you're young, before you had any true agency, can give you awesome resources and seemingly limitless ingenuity. After all, you're trying to survive. So you need to learn how to focus, be agile, leverage time or energy quickly. But what happens when you or fateful circumstances change the environment? You still carry that power. You also carry the shadow that comes with it. In my favorite passage from The Power of Onlyness, Nilofer Merchant says, "To rebel is to push against. To lead is to advocate for. To rebel is to say, we won't. To lead is to say, we will. To rebel is to deny the authority of others. To lead is to invoke your own authority. Rebels attack, while leaders drive towards something." What happens when what you've built your whole army to battle is gone? When what you create a resistance against crumbles? When what you are resilient against leaves your life? Everything becomes a war, often without you realizing it, and the toxic cycle continues. Resistance cannot be the foundation of your power. Resilience cannot be the center of your being. Your perceived enemy cannot be a healthy co-conspirator in your identity, and you cannot grow beyond the fight without recognizing the trauma you still carry from it. How can you fully embrace the sun if you aren't recognizing the shadow? By morning, everything was fine. Even I was okay despite getting only an hour or two of sleep. When we made it home, I unpacked the car alone and noticed a lump beside our house. It was a pretty 7-inch bird. It was dead. I gave it a proper burial.